Welcome back. All right, so let's catch you up on all the little incidentals that we've gone through and taken care of so far. Stuff that needs to get taken care of, but it's just those little things, little details as we go throughout it. We've got the engine in. We've made a couple other adjustments on some of the little incidentals. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So went ahead and made a throttle bracket, something that will actually hold the stock throttle for the Rx-7, so that way I didn't necessarily have to go purchase a new one. We did some other incidentals, which created some fuel rail brackets, just little 90-degree aluminum pieces that would bolt into where it needed to. We did an upgrade to a 102-millimeter throttle body. I wanted something that would fit a little bit better and give me as much flow as I need. And then some of the small things I'm still waiting to come in. Got on the Holley website, absolutely love the website. They allow you to kind of break everything down step by step. So I got some Earl's AN connection lines. I've got a couple other connections that have come in, some of my 90s for my oil cooler, still waiting for the 90s for my power steering cooler to come in, as well as the lines that are going to tie in for the AccuSump to run its system all the way through here and all the way down and tie into my oil filter. We've got radiator hoses, top and bottom done, as well as some of the coolant lines to run for the individual setups. Any vacuum ports that I wasn't going to use, capped off, made sure I'd kind of got those capped for now, as well as some of my crankcase pressure relief back into the intake. Things like that, just kind of buttoned it up. We got a belt on it. It was able to figure out the correct belt to work for this system. So we're kind of moving along. We've got the majority of everything taken care of. Spark plug wires on now. Coil actual wires ran and ready for connection off the back. Things like that. So that way I know that the engine at this point is as buttoned up as I can make it. Still waiting for other lines to come in for Holley, so that way I can finish up with all the AN lines and everything tied together. So the next part that I'm excited about is the next project. It's definitely gonna be some work. It's not something I've done before. I've already reached out to a bunch of friends and asked, okay, I'm gonna call you, ask questions about, okay, am I doing this right? Have I done all the measurements right? Because I wanna make sure this goes in correct. So instead of going with the stock FD rear end, I decided to switch out and go with a Ford 8.8. It's got a True Track carrier in it, 390 gears. I reached out to the guys at Grunus Racing. They're the ones that make a kit that basically you can put right together to where this will set in. Pretty impressive piece of machinery that all they sent. It's already set to be pre-cut. All I have to do is basically drop the rear subframe and then set this up, do all my measures to make sure it's where it needs to be, and then I can weld it in. And I also opted for some upgraded axles. So these are 31 spline. I think they said capable of holding up to like 1,400 horsepower, which we're not going to be making that much. But hey, at least I know I don't have to worry about breaking anything. So at this point, I need to get the rear end, well, actually the whole rear of the car up, start dropping that rear subframe, all the suspension pieces that's kind of all in it that we did as little upgrades. I'll show you those as we get there and start seeing how this thing is going to fit. So another big project. But once this is done, we can start getting the drive shaft in, we can start running fuel lines, brake lines, all that type of stuff. So I'm excited to get this done. It's going to be a big part of the project. And like I always say, let's get to do some work. Professional. So let it come down nice and easy and everybody will be so impressed. Nailed it. All right, as you guys just saw, I extremely underestimated the weight of how much was on the back of this subframe, because I was hoping to lower it down nice and flat, nice and smooth, so that way I could turn around and set it right back up in the same way. And yeah, that didn't go as planned at all. So it's out. I guess, hey, I'm happy it's out. It didn't hit anything or damage anything underneath the car when I did it, and I'm gonna repaint some of this anyways, because I'm gonna have to weld that brace in. So, all right, let's continue. Hey, can't do everything right. So at this point I threw some tacks into the brace so that way it would kind of hold its form and stay in its proper location, and I wanted to test fit everything. So I got the axles installed, I made sure all the suspension parts actually fit just the way that it was supposed to. One of the biggest things with fabricating is you got to be real careful that everything fits just right before you actually do your final weld up and make sure everything is done, because once you do that you can't go back. So everything fits well so far. It fit in how I wanted it to. I made sure that there was no binding or movement, and my angles on the diff all seem to be working at pretty much the exact same angle I need. So I'm going to slide underneath the car, go ahead and set it up in there, make sure it doesn't hit anything underneath the car, and then that way it should be good for final weld assembly. So let's get that done. this point I realized that my video footage of all the welding and putting it all together after I test fit everything was corrupted. So I wasn't able to show any of that through this video. But this kind of gets us caught up. So now I've went ahead and welded it all up. I got the primer put on everything, as well as I'm going to do some high temperature heat paint throughout the whole thing, so that way everything is all sealed up. I don't have to worry about rust. So that about wraps it up for part 1, guys. Stay tuned for part 2, and we'll do final assembly and final fitment. Thanks for watching.